1311. The richest empire in the world launches the largest naval expedition in history. 2,000 ships, tens of thousands of sailors, enough gold to ransom kingdoms. Their mission? To discover what lies beyond the edge of the ocean. They sailed west into the Atlantic and vanished. No wreckage, no survivors, no trace. Just one haunting question: did an African emperor reach America 181 years before Columbus? And if so, why did no one come back? His name was Mansa Abubakari Keita II, Emperor of Mali, ruler of an empire so wealthy that when his successor, Mansa Musa, went on pilgrimage to Mecca, he gave away so much gold he crashed the Egyptian economy for a decade. But Abubakari didn't care about gold. He cared about knowledge. According to Arab historians who recorded his story, Abubakari became obsessed with a question: what lies on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean? His scholars told him it was endless, impassable, that ships would fall off the edge of the world. So he decided to prove them wrong. In 1310, he assembled a fleet. Not a small expedition: 200 ships, cargo vessels filled with supplies, smaller boats for coastal navigation, thousands of sailors, navigators, and warriors. He gave them one order: sail west until you reach the other side, or until you can't sail anymore. They left, and months later, only one ship returned. The captain who came back told a terrifying story. They'd sailed for weeks without seeing land. Then they encountered something he called a river in the middle of the ocean, a current so powerful it pulled ships in and wouldn't let them go. Most of the fleet was dragged away. The captain's ship barely escaped by turning back immediately. When he reached Mali, he knelt before the emperor and begged forgiveness. Abubakari's response? Build more ships. He didn't see failure. He saw data. His fleet had found a current, which meant there was something beyond it worth reaching. So in 1311, he commissioned an even larger expedition. This time, 2,000 ships. Some sources even say 3,000. And here's where it gets wild: Abubakari didn't just send them. He went with them. He abdicated his throne, handed the empire to his brother Mansa Musa, and sailed into the Atlantic himself. He was never seen again. For centuries, this was dismissed as legend, a myth, African fantasy, until historians started finding things. Thing 1. Pre-Columbian artifacts in the Americas showing African features. Stone heads in Mexico with West African facial characteristics. Bronze sculptures in South America using techniques unique to medieval Mali. Thing 2. Linguistic evidence. Words in Indigenous Caribbean and South American languages that match Mandinka, the language of Mali. Words for gold, navigation, and strangely, king. Thing 3. The current. The river in the ocean the captain described? It's real. It's called the North Atlantic Gyre, a circular current that, if you catch it right, can carry ships from West Africa to the Caribbean. Medieval African sailors wouldn't have had the tools to escape it once caught. They would have been pulled west, directly to the Americas. Thing 4. Columbus's own journals. In 1492, when he reached the Caribbean, indigenous people told him about black-skinned people who had come from the southeast in boats, trading gold-tipped spears. Columbus wrote it down. Then the Spanish buried the document for 400 years. Here's where it gets uncomfortable for traditional historians. If Abubakari reached the Americas, why didn't he colonize it? Why no empire? Why no conquest? Maybe because that wasn't the point. Medieval Mali wasn't a conquering empire, it was a trading empire. They didn't invade, they negotiated. They established trade routes, exchanged goods, and moved on. Some researchers believe Abubakari's fleet did reach the Americas. They traded with indigenous peoples, shared technology and knowledge, and then they tried to return home, but couldn't. The currents that carried them west wouldn't carry them east. They were stranded, so they integrated, married into local tribes, passed down stories of a golden empire across the ocean, stories that became legends among indigenous peoples about gods who came from the sea. And when European colonizers arrived 200 years later, they systematically destroyed any evidence that Africans had been there first, because that evidence would have shattered their entire justification for conquest. If Africans were sophisticated navigators who had reached the Americas peacefully, how could Europeans claim they were discovering and civilizing anything? In the 1970s, a Malian historian named Gausu Diawara claimed he had found records in Mali's oral traditions that confirmed Abubakari's landing. He was preparing to publish his research when he died suddenly. His documents vanished. In 1997, British marine archaeologist Philip Beale built a replica of a medieval African ship and proved it could make the Atlantic crossing using only period-accurate technology and the North Atlantic Gyre. His findings were largely ignored by mainstream academia. Why? Because accepting this story means accepting that Africans were master navigators, that Africans reached America before Europeans, that the age of exploration was actually the age of catching up, and that everything we were taught about history might be a lie designed to justify colonialism. Abubakari's expedition wasn't a failure. It was so successful that it had to be erased. Somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean, there are shipwrecks that would rewrite history. Somewhere in the Americas, there are descendants of Mali's empire who don't know their ancestry. And somewhere in the archives of colonial powers, there are documents that will never see daylight. Mansa Abubakari Keita II gave up the richest throne in the world to chase a question. He sailed into the unknown with 2,000 ships and tens of thousands of people, seeking not conquest but knowledge. He never came back. But maybe that's because he found what he was looking for. And maybe, just maybe, he decided the new world was worth staying for. Some expeditions don't fail. They just succeed so completely that history has to pretend they never happened. Thanks for watching.